Hello everyone. This is going to be a quick walkthrough of how to get Python and VS Code installed on Windows 10. So I have a new install of Windows 10 here. Of course it's gonna give me some pop-ups. Okay, so first let's download Python, and you can probably just do Python download and that should take you to the page. If for some reason you are on some old hardware, you're going to want to actually scroll down and go to the download of the version that you would like, and you're probably going to need 32-bit. But I am on relatively new hardware, so I can just download. And that should just take a moment. Okay, now this is pretty important. You're going to want to add python.exe to your path, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. You can leave all those checked. I'm actually the only user on this machine, but just install for all users and just some stuff you might need. Okay, so that's going. We're gonna head on over and we're going to download Visual Studio Code, not Visual Studio. Looks like I accidentally hit caps lock there. And we do want Windows, so we'll just click there. Oh, it looks like it kicked off the download. If for some reason you find yourself at a page that looks like this, I'll wait for it to load. You are going to want to actually do code. Again, Visual Studio is proprietary Microsoft software, whereas Visual Studio Code is open source and free, and what I prefer to use as my IDE. And so again, we can just click that. Accept the terms to give Microsoft your firstborn child, desktop icon, just so we can right-click files and open with code. I'm going to check the open with code options, and we will just let those run. One other piece of software I like to have is Notepad++. Unfortunately, I am a Linux user, so I do not have access to it usually, but on Windows it's very useful when you're looking at files. Sometimes there's some encoding errors, characters it can't really read, and Notepad++ just lets you see those characters, which is very convenient. Agree to the terms, defaults are fine. Your call on the desktop shortcut. I don't know how much I'll be using it, so I'll just say OK, finish, and that should launch. And what you need to do here is show symbols and show all characters. And if you see that, put the CRLF, that's carriage return line feed. If you're parsing through files in Python, you will probably see that as a WAC-N. So that is a slash going from the upper left to the lower right, and then the N character. Well, I guess the N character. Hard to explain. Probably just do a new file for a demo real quick. When I hit enter, you see the CRLF. Once we have Python up and running, I will try to show you that with a little bit of a better example. Okay, and that would be my Linux. So, if for some reason you did not check the add Python to path, we'll just show how you can do that real quick. So say I want to make a new file, a new text file, and I will just call this, actually I'll call it demo. And you see it as the .txt extension. And if I open up a command prompt, and type demo, well, demo is not recognized as an internal or external command, operable program, or batch file. Well, I can make this a batch file by changing the extension to .bat, and we'll just edit that real quick. And you know what, we'll use our Notepad++. I'm just going to do echo hello world, and Control S to save that. Close out some of these tabs we don't need. I won't save that. And actually, if I run this now, it's probably just going to flash real quick and then go away. So I'm going to add a pause, and that's just going to wait for a keystroke to be pressed before it exits the program. And that just lets us see it. And there we have our hello world. Okay. And again, if I type demo, it's still not recognized. That's because it's not in the path variable. And that is where Windows is going to look for programs to run. And we see, because I checked that box to add Python to path, you'll see that it's going to look in C program files, Python 3.11, C program files, Python 3.11 scripts, and so on. If you installed for a single user, I believe it's going to go to user, your username, app data, program files, and Python. But you could Google that and find it relatively easily. So if we want to run this batch file, we would just go env and edit the system environment variables and environmental variables. And we see we have variables for my user, which is just called Gary. And I believe I could add it there. Or you can add it to the system variables. So if we just edit, or I'm sorry, new, and we would want C users Gary documents. And if you're unsure of the path, you can always just navigate to your directory and find it that way, and then just copy and paste. Same thing. And we may need to open up a new command prompt. Let me see here. So it looks like those are loaded when a command prompt is launched. So if I do demo now, and there we have it, because it's on the path. When I type that in, again, it's going to look in all of the locations on path. And when it gets to this entry here, it's going to say, oh, there is a batch file called demo. And that can be useful for a lot of things. So when you make Python programs, Python is going to have its own locations where it's going to look for packages to import. So if you write custom packages for your software, you're going to want to be familiar with that. And let's see how our Python install is doing. It looks like that's good to go. Visual Studio as well. Well, Visual Studio Code, but you'll probably hear me just refer to it as Visual Studio. And what we can do now is just open up our home directory and trust the authors. Yes, that's fine. And we just want to make a dummy file with a .py extension. And it's going to ask, do you want to install the recommended extension for Python? And yes, we do. That'll give us some syntax highlighting, just generally make our lives easier when working with Python in Visual Studio. So that is going. Let's see here. We could just do a quick function. Oh, and it looks like that finished. And I'm not going to, well, I'm probably not going to make a tutorial on Python. There are definitely plenty of those out there already. So here's our nifty Python program. I'm going to hit Control and then the tick button under the escape key. It looks like that. It automatically gave me 2, but holding Control is going to open up the terminal, and then I can just hit the play button and we should see Hello World. And there we go. I guess one other thing I would like to point out with Windows and Python is you have in Windows Task Scheduler. You will have this on Windows and Windows Server. And let's see here. Oh, I think this is just the VM I am in acting up. Okay. So you can right click and create task, and I'll just call this demo task. I will run whether the user is logged in or not. Not that that's the greatest idea, but I guess for the purposes of just demonstration, that's fine. We'll call this Windows 10. And triggers, we can define the time. Let's see. It's 1:42. I'm just going to set this to 1:44. And let's see. We can probably just use this demo. And it's going to prompt me for my password. I just need to put that in. If you're in an on-premises environment with Windows Server, you're probably going to want to make a service account in the domain and run it as that user. And let's see. How could I demo this very well? I'm just going to edit, and rather than just echoing hello world. I'm going to put that into a file. And if I just did one of these symbols, it would overwrite two, I believe, appends. And let's see what time we're at. So we've got about 30 seconds. And if you come down here to the library, you can see it's ready. It's going to run every day at 1:44 p.m. If you were using Linux, this would be a cron job. And I will go into that in another video. It has not yet run. We can right click and refresh. And we just need to wait. And it said it completed successfully. And refresh that. And that is a bit odd. Oh, sorry, not actions. Actually, let me see if I can just run that. It's running. Windows is great because if you kick it off like that, it'll probably say running forever. It should take less than a second. And still, we don't have that. The file created showing that it ran. So it's running as me. It's running whether I'm logged in or not. It's done with the highest privileges. Oh, I think what might be going on is the program might be running in a different location. So when you run a program, if you're writing out a file, it's going to be relative to where your program is running. So if I instead explicitly say where I want this file to be written to, and we're just going to test that. And let's see if we can get that file created now. Beautiful. So that's how you get Python and Visual Studio Code up and running on Windows 10. Again, Notepad++, free software. It's a great tool to have, and I'm going to research where batch files are run when you don't provide a start and location. And I guess just for those of you curious, we probably could have done a start in and given it just the C users Gary documents, and we should have seen that file there as well. But that's it for this video, and I will see you in another one.